Welcome to the Oh Brother podcast. I'm your host, Future Man. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Applejack.
Future Man, Applejack. We're in Bottle Rock.
Just because you're up doesn't mean you're not my brother. All right, so welcome to the Oh Brother podcast. Starting off with some censoring to do in the post-production studios. Welcome to the Oh Brother podcast. It is July 2nd, 2021, and we are coming to you with an episode. Now, we did a few weeks ago, we put out about the Oh Brother People's Choice, and trying to get some folks to provide some suggestions of films they wanted us to watch and review. We got a ton of recommendations, but this one's been a long time coming. One follower in particular has been chomping at the bit for us to do a Wes Anderson based episode. So we're going to do what Mike just off mic dubbed WESTWORLD, which I like that title. So we're going to do, basically we're looking at an evolution of Wes Anderson's filmmaking, and it's appropriate because he's in his 25th year as a filmmaker at this point. If you look at Bottle Rocket, which came out in 96 as his first film, to now,
which is amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah. So we decided, we talked about it for a while, and at first we were just going to do the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. We're just going to take the one film, and then we thought, well, let's kind of do, look at an arc of his filmmaking. And Bottle Rocket, Life Aquatic, and then the Grand Budapest Hotel were sort of a nice, almost 10 years apart, exactly, not quite, but close. And so we thought, well, that'll be a good arc to look at. And so that's what we've done. Now
should point out the WESTWORLD reference is a Michael Crichton reference to WESTWORLD. Just chopping off the T, because I don't know if people would get that.
Wow. Okay. If anybody's tuning into a Wes Anderson podcast episode, they're going to know WESTWORLD.
Probably.
I mean, we're talking peculiarity and quirkiness and eccentricity. Right. So, but thanks for spelling that out for the listeners.
Yeah, but
I'm sure they'll appreciate the condensation.
That doesn't mean WESTWORLD.
The condescending attitude.
WESTWORLD isn't eccentric,
Sure it is.
Michael Crichton's like sci-fi, mainstream kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing peculiar or odd about WESTWORLD. That's for sure.
Well, it's robots.
Wow. All right. Well,
and off we go.
Right out of the gate, folks. Yeah, this is going to be a winner. So, all right, before we get into the meat of it, for those of you that are not currently following us, make sure that you do. And the easiest way to find all things Oh Brother is to go to our official website, which is OHB as in brother podcast.com. That's OHB as in brother podcast.com. And you can find access to all our social media out there. We've got a blog that you can follow. Brand new blog out there too. By the time this episode airs, you want to quickly mention what the latest blog is about?
Yeah, I had an idea to do, instead of the Simpsons go to the movies go to the Simpsons. And it sounded like a great idea because there's a movie reference in every show.
Right.
And then it was a terrible idea because there's a movie reference in every show. I watched so much video.
How do you
narrow it down to 5? And I basically used our taste in movies to kind of narrow it down with The Godfather and Kubrick and so forth. So
yeah, there's already been some good feedback to the blog. It's only been out about a day as of this recording, but I wanted to mention, you just talked about basing it or you try to narrow it down based on some of our favorites and things. And few episodes back, we had done our first year anniversary episode, and we went back and we looked at our very first episode about our top 5 films. And it was interesting. Yesterday evening, I got a text from my girlfriend's younger daughter, and it says, I'm going to read this verbatim. I don't want to misquote, but speaking of, since we're talking about, people's choice and listener feedback and so forth, So she says in this
Some
text,
tells me this isn't going to be 2 thumbs up.
she says in this text, Mom said to text you a list of movies that I think have strong cultural relevance now, in capital letters, not 70 years ago. And she goes on to make various suggestions, some actually wonderful things that I'll talk to you about off air that we can put into some future episodes. She's a very, very smart young woman, by the way. So as the conversation went back and forth through text, at one point she felt the need to add to that earlier comment, and she says here, Mom told me your list of favorite movies, and it was very sad.
All-time classic movies.
Now, in the words of the late great Art Linkletter, kids say the darndest things. So there you go. There's some really good suggestions.
Very sad.
Very sad. I mean, she was referencing things I'd never heard before. So we, just FYI, again, I'll talk to you off air, we got a lot of homework we got to do, because I've got a whole list of films now that we have to watch.
Well, I'm curious to see what she's written down.
But
are they all like
amazing.
New stuff? Or
No, not necessarily.
So there's okay.
I mean, they're much more contemporary. Yeah. But
right.
But, some of them are in the last few years or so, but we're not talking, the great classics or anything like that. So, but I'm sort of excited. I mean, I said to her, that's good. I mean, it turns me on to things that maybe I wouldn't otherwise check out. So,
which segues good into Wes Anderson.
Absolutely. Yeah. Get us into it.
Well, first off, I was surprised. I thought he was younger than you for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't picture him in his 50s. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's 52.
Yeah. And so was Owen Wilson. And they went to college together in Texas.
Right.
And this guy is an encyclopedia of movies. Mm-hmm. And if you like Wes Anderson, if you love Wes Anderson, you have to get the Criterion versions, because they cover so much stuff. And it goes into the crevices that I would never even pick up on. And his movie knowledge is so vast that I'm almost embarrassed when I listen to his commentaries.
Well,
and I listen to the 3 commentaries of the movies we're doing today.
Of these 3, yeah. And we're not going to get into the weeds with each of the films. We'll sort of make an assumption that most people have seen these films. And if not, go and watch them, because we want to sort of stay on the topic of his filmmaking and the things that stand out about.
Yeah, because there's themes.
There's themes
in all of them.
Right. And for me, if you look at a lot of his influences, you wouldn't be surprised. Truffaut and Huston and Wells and Hitchcock, Kubrick, actually, right?
Correct.
And what hit me is, as I was preparing for the episode, is not to oversimplify it, but Wes Anderson is one of those filmmakers who's an artist and a storyteller. And I think those are 2 main components of what is so striking about his films. When you watch a Wes Anderson film, you're watching a Wes Anderson film. And like you said, because of the various themes and filmmaking techniques that he brings to each of his films. So,
yeah. So we're starting with Bottle Rocket, which was his first film.
Now it's interesting. I just have to quickly say, I hadn't seen Bottle Rocket.
Never.
And we just passed the 25th anniversary of that film, as I kind of alluded to at the start of the episode.
Well, and before I say anything, what did you think?
Well, all right. So it was released February 21st, 1996. Now, I got into Wes Anderson with Rushmore in 98.
Right.
And then, I followed him. Then Tannenbaums came out, the Royal Tannenbaums, in 2001. And then the next film was 2004, The Life Aquatic. And much like a lot of the audience, I stopped watching Wes Anderson at that point.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into that. But I liked it. It was great because I didn't go into it feeling like there was this huge hype or expectation. I just sort of knew, okay, this is his first film. It's a bit of a cult classic, and I didn't know a whole lot beyond that. I knew the Wilsons were in it and everything, and but I liked it. I enjoyed it.
And I watched the short. It was a short film.
Yeah.
That this was made from. So I saw the short for the first time, which I'm surprised because I've had the Criterion since it's been out. It wasn't particularly a good film, but in retrospect, it's kind of gained, like you said, a cult following.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess what shocks me is who made the film or how the film got made, which I don't know if you know this or not, who's behind the film, like who gave the green light. Gracie Films made the film. Yeah, we were just talking about The Simpsons.
Right.
James L. Brooks.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So James L. Brooks and Richie Sakai, who's the longtime showrunner for The Simpsons for probably over 30 years since they've been on, they were the ones who kind of found Wes, and Wes found them through another person. But Wes was really bold. I mean, he had this script and it was a mess, I guess. It was really long but he went to Jim Brooks along with Owen. And I mean, at this time they were sleeping the three Owens, no, Owens,
Wilson brothers.
Yeah, the three Wilson brothers. I'm thinking right. Owen Wilson. The three Wilson brothers and him were sleeping in like a one-room place, had no money. They borrowed money from their dads. Each dad gave them 10 grand or something like that to make the film. And then he went to James Brooks and I guess he was needling them pretty good. Well, so do we get the green light? Can we get it made? And he was that passionate about being a filmmaker. And it's so odd because he went to college for philosophy. Owen went to college for another liberal art. So they clearly wanted to be filmmakers, and they knew that. And I'm guessing that Wes Anderson did nothing but watch films day in, day out, because he knows every film. I mean, when you listen to him on the commentaries, it's like, oh, that shot's from this, that's got a little of this, that's, like Truffaut and Hitchcock. And then you go back and you look at the films and you see the different shots. It's amazing. Even some of the shots he duplicates and, iterations of his films. But Bottle Rocket tanked pretty bad. And they talked about being in the audience, how they were in the back of the audience for the screening, the test screening. And people were like walking out 5 minutes in. But Wes focused on the people who stayed, like the 4 people who stayed. He cornered them and say, why did you like it? And kind of built upon that. Now, I saw Rushmore first as well before I saw Bottle Rocket. And it was because of Bill Murray, plain and simple. I don't think I would have seen it, but I saw the previews. I thought it was funny. And I liked the movie. And that made me go back right away and watch Bottle Rocket.
Yeah. Well, and there's a common theme is he's become, like so many others, a fixture, a staple in Anderson's films.
Yeah. In fact, he's been in the most Anderson films, 9 out of 10. He's been in everything except Bottle Rocket. They kept wanting to send him Bottle Rocket. Bill, watch Bottle Rocket and you'll get an idea. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
He was never going to watch it.
Well, and it's sort of, it gave Murray a rebirth when, after being in Rushmore, that kind of launched sort of a second phase of his career at that point, at least in independent films.
Oh, definitely.
And
yeah, because it totally changed him because he was still funny in the movie, and the movie's got humor, but it's also got a little romance in it. And, there's the funny parts with his kids in the movie. But yeah, it was like a rebirth for Bill Murray. But
I think that's the thing you mentioned too about the shots and him being a student of film. And I think that's, as I watched the three films, that's what's most striking, I think, is just the way he's honed his craft over the years. It's I mean, there's too many shots and things to really get in and analyze. They're so striking.
oh yeah,
The camera movement, the things this guy can do with the camera is just phenomenal. It's phenomenal to look at,
What, as you look back at Bottle Rocket, what sticks out as far as themes? I mean, what would you call it if somebody said, "Hey, I got this movie Bottle Rocket. What's it about?"
See, I go more to the tone and the fact that it's an independent film as opposed to like, oh, it's it's a caper film, really.
Well, that's what it is,
right?
I mean, bingo. It's
which
a caper.
is right, which is again a theme throughout.
And
right?
look at
Budapest and
every single
Life
film.
Aquatic, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah,
they all have capers in them, right? There's also family issues in every single film, whether it's brother to brother or father and son. Like with Bill Murray was kind of a father figure in Rushmore. We shouldn't be talking about Rushmore because that's not one of the three. But in Life Aquatic, there was definitely a father-son between Owen Wilson and Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe hilariously was jealous of that relationship.
And, to see his performance in Life Aquatic versus the Grand Budapest Hotel is talk about polar opposites.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, it's funny.
And
that's, I hadn't seen that either. I hadn't actually, I hadn't seen any of these films. I didn't even mention that at the top. No, I'm talking about the three were Bottle Rocket, Life Aquatic, and Grand Budapest Hotel.
That's
I hadn't
funny.
seen, because again, when Life Aquatic came out in 2004, it was just something about it didn't appeal to me enough to bring me in to want to see it.
Right.
And that was where it stopped for me, unfortunately, because of the three, the Grand Budapest Hotel is by far my favorite.
By far the best.
Yeah.
It's by far the best.
And again, no surprise. I mean, that's the most recent of the three. And
right.
Of course he's going to have developed and honed the craft, even more by then.
The other one that that you haven't seen that you'll really like is Mr. Fantastic Fox. Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a troupe. They started a troupe,
Well, and I thought of that with the Nelms, right? That was one of the things we've talked about with the Nelms brothers.
The
sort
Nelms
of this
universe.
And this family they kind of stick with, people that you trust and you have a good relationship with. And, why not just continue that blueprint?
But his trajectory as a filmmaker hasn't been like this. It's been kind of up and down, both critically and financially.
Well, actually, let me say, first things that I picked up on, like with Bottle Rocket, was the slow-mo ending. Some of the use of the slow-mo, which of course you see in the other films. His use of, and it was, I guess, most striking in the Life Aquatic was like the open sets. They had the set of the ship or whatever they were in. And the way he would move from, I'll just say, set to set. It was like a play. It's like you're watching a play, right?
Very much.
The camera goes from, but it's like a sitcom, like a cutaway. There's no like that fourth wall.
It's like a ship that's cut in half.
Right, exactly.
And you can see every room.
Right.
So you can watch people go through this maze.
It's so pleasing to the eye to see the way he moves. And I mean, moving the camera up, down, in, up. It's just, he's a master with the camera. Same cinematographer too for all these films. And I would imagine probably most of his films, right?
And guess where he got him from? You're going to love this.
Where? This is
Drugstore Cowboy.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't catch that. Wow.
I mean,
that's a great Gus
kind of
Van
like us.
Sant
He watches that film. He likes Gus Van Sant.
I need that.
He gets to know who his cinematographer is. He steals them.
Which would have been, what was that was like 93, I want to say. It was Drugstore Cowboys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So he got him. And it was funny because he wrote the first three with Owen Wilson, and then he had a different writer for the next few, and then I think it's Noah Birnbaum
for Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, Grand Budapest and Life Aquatic. You know, he has a different writing partners.
Life Aquatic was a Christmas Day release in 2004.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and then
that probably didn't help it either.
And then the Grand Budapest was March 28th, 2014. But yeah, the movement of the camera, the color palette, you know, in the films are very striking. But, you know, of course, Life Aquatic, but Grand Budapest Hotel with, you know, the pinks and the reds and the grays and the blues. And it's just, God, I love it.
Grand Budapest Hotel has 4 different timelines in it.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the girl putting a key. You remember the beginning?
On the statue, yeah.
On the statue. And then there's a guy, it's Tom Wilkinson.
Great actor. Yeah, great actor.
Who's narrating the story or starting to, and then the kids come in the room.
Which that's another theme, right? There's another common element in Wes's films is the narration, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Like Alec Baldwin, he narrated one of them.
And how he uses like chapter transitions.
Well,
right. Part 1, part 2, part 3,
yes.
Chapter 1, chapter 2.
It's funny you bring that up because that's much more prevalent in Rushmore and the Royal Tannenbaums than it is. It's hardly used in Bottle Rocket.
Yeah, but I thought like in Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and right,
he used it, and he uses it,
and definitely in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, he doesn't beat you over the head with it in Grand Budapest,
right?
But like it's amazing that hotel, that Grand Budapest Hotel, is in Europe someplace, and it was a mall. Like an empty mall. So I saw the picture of the empty mall. And then what they did is they built the old Grand Budapest, because it starts where the Grand Budapest is in shambles. Mm-hmm. And then we meet the great actor
F. Murray
Abraham, who we find out, you know, is now calling himself Gustav.
Right.
But he was the
lobby boy. The lobby boy.
And
which is
at its height.
Yeah. And Tony Revolori, who was new at that time. And I think that was his first feature film. He was fantastic in that.
And they did a big search for him.
You know,
and then they wind up finding him in like California or something.
And I have to say, Quiz Show. You remember Quiz Show, which we loved with
Ralph
Fiennes and from The Big Lebowski.
Oh,
John Turturro, right, which was in one of your other recent blogs. But the Grand Budapest Hotel was just such a pleasure to be able to see Ralph Fiennes again on film. I hadn't seen him in a movie for a while just because I hadn't watched anything he's been in recently. He's just
so good.
He's so masterful. And so that was one of the most enjoyable things about getting to see that film.
Oh yeah, the way he moves, the way he talks,
it's so funny. And the comedy in Wes's films too is really, it's very quirky, but
it's quirky. Like in Bottle Rocket, one of my favorite scenes is, you know, Owen Wilson's trying to plan the caper out, and he's got the map, and he's like, Bob, you do this and you do this. And Bob keeps touching the gun. He's like, Bob, don't touch the gun.
Right.
Don't touch the gun.
It's like turning it, facing them.
Yeah.
Stuff.
He's like, don't move the gun. And then finally he picks up the gun. Capers off.
Right.
Robbery's off. Just like that.
And I think, you know, you couldn't have found 2 other guys to portray such quirky characters. I mean, Owen and Luke Wilson are sort of, to me, that way anyways. You know,
Owen especially.
Certainly Owen.
Owen definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's funny because Owen kind of went, because he started getting a lot of acting. And it was funny because Gene Hackman noticed him. I don't know if it was from Bottle Rocket. I think it was from Bottle Rocket. He noticed him, and then he did Behind Enemy Lines, which is an action movie. Remember?
I actually liked that film.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
I enjoyed that film.
and Gene Hackman was in it, and then they came to work together in Royal Tenenbaums.
Right.
Hackman was great in that.
Miss Gene Hackman.
I know. What a shame.
Come out of retirement. Come on, Joe Pesci did it. You can do it, Gene.
I know, but the humor is very, it's very eccentric. It's very peculiar.
I thought it was to me, Grand Budapest Hotel was the best representation of it too. As good as the other ones were, it's just so funny.
A lot of characters find an unusual demise in his films, but he uses a lot of models.
Yeah, right? A lot of miniatures.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's quite obvious. Mm-hmm. And especially in Grand Budapest.
See, now I thought, especially in the Life Aquatic, if you go back and watch that again, it's very pronounced there. Maybe just to spend a couple of minutes on that film in particular. What is your take on that film?
Well, again, the same kind of themes. Now we're dealing with a bigger cast.
Yeah. But
I know from watching all the extras and the commentary that Wes was really focused on Murray, and I mean, he spent all his time in Murray's ear, but Bill Murray had just as much to do with, the making of that movie almost as Wes. Well, I shouldn't say that, because Wes is so detailed. Everything from this little Z, and that's something that's common in all he has these little logos or.
I tried to find a red toque to wear, but I couldn't.
If we had more time, I would have been able to get us keys from the
jumpsuit or something. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you think so 8 years on from Bottle Rocket, and you've got now Bill Murray, Willem Dafoe, Cate Blanchett, Jeff Goldblum, Owen, of course, Angelica Houston. Like the cast is phenomenal. Now I'm going to admit, I was so bored through the first half of the film. I mean, really bored. And then you get to that point in the film, right? It's always 60 pages in. Right.
Yeah.
About of an hour in. And then you've got that tipping point,
right.
And that's when I sort of woke up. There's, not to give away too much of the film, but there's a pretty significant event that takes place out on one of the ships, and kind of mayhem ensues. And that's when I started to get more riveted.
I don't think this is a film we have to worry about.
I guess not. It's so old. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But I mean, I hadn't seen it until the last couple of days. So,
and I don't remember having that difficult a time getting into the story. Mm-hmm. There was something about Bill Murray that, like when he's, and a funny thing in the commentary, it's obviously based on Jacques Cousteau. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Jacques Cousteau?
Oh, yeah.
You might not be. Okay.
Totally.
I didn't know if you would be old enough to remember.
Yes.
But he did these quirky films of like sea creatures, and that's who this character is clearly based on. Well, there must be something to do with the Jacques Cousteau Society, because every time they mention Jacques Cousteau in the commentary, it's bleeped out.
Oh, really? Because there's a dedication to him at the end of the film.
Really? I mean, every time he's like, this is about Jacques Cousteau, beep.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, why are you beeping his name out? It's so obvious. That's something else to know too, is his brother is an artist in New York. Mm-hmm. He's living in Paris now, which I think influences Grand Budapest a lot, because it's European, obviously. Mm-hmm. It's, post-war and pre-war.
Well, and now you have both the French Dispatch getting ready to come
right.
out too,
I'll be curious, but it looks like it's very similarly shot. If you really pay attention to Grand Budapest, through each time period, he changes. It's 187 in the first part, then it's widescreen, then it's just
the aspect ratio.
Yeah, he changes the aspect ratio. And it's so bizarre. There's some shots. And I got to say this one thing about Grand Budapest before I forget. Harvey Keitel. There's another.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
What else was he? Oh, he's in Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay.
But he's a prisoner in Grand Budapest, and he's staying with these three other guys. He's a method actor, right?
Yes.
So he says to Wes, I want to spend, 4 days in the cell with these three guys, just hanging out. And Wes is like, okay. Like Wes said, I learned to, whatever Harvey says, you say yes to.
Yeah.
And he says, whatever it is, he asked for it. It's always weird.
Yeah.
It makes the character better.
It's interesting how you think of the cast of characters, meaning the actual actors, and they're all kind of cut from a similar cloth when you think about it, right?
Yeah, in some senses.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. I mean, come on.
Right.
Bill Murray.
Quirky.
Owen Wilson. I mean, they're all very quirky. Adrian Brody fits into that. Now, what about, I may not say her name correctly, Saoirse Ronan, who played
Saoirse,
sorry.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal. She was only 20 at the time.
Yeah,
they made
this was one of her first films. I think she was younger than that. She was actually 19.
Maybe 19, yeah. Right.
Or maybe Tony was 19, but her mother was with her, the whole time they were filming, because they all stay together. It's very much like a troupe, like a theater troupe.
Yeah.
And they go, they do one play and then they do the next play and then they do the next. So they all stay together in that Grand Budapest Hotel and in the hotel across the street. And they eat together, they have meals together. And that's something Wes is like demanding now. You can't go back to your trailer. You've got to think of, these are big casts.
They are big casts.
So you got to stay on. And he got that from Goldblum, because Goldblum and Ray Fiennes stayed on set. So when it came time to incorporate their character, they knew what was going on.
And there's so many characters, especially in the Grand Budapest Hotel. There's so many we haven't even mentioned. The list,
I know,
of some of the cameos.
Bob, yeah, I know.
What is it? Is it Fisher Stevens?
Yeah, Fisher Stevens had a small role in that.
There's just a lot of actors like that you've seen in a million films.
Bob Birnbaum is another guy.
Yeah, lots of them. The guy
on Seinfeld.
I was just going to say, right? He played the NBC executive.
Exactly.
That was a good. So yeah, for me, going back to, the art and storytelling, I think that's what stands out to me as I look at these three films, and, it kind of reignites my interest in getting back into that type of cinema.
Yeah.
You think of a lot of the films we've covered recently, aside from the Kubrick episodes we've done.
Yeah.
We're doing all these Disney ones. And,
right. This is classic cinema.
Right.
This really is. And if you see how he shoots and how he works, works like an old time director.
Mm-hmm.
He works like a guy's that been doing it 60 years. Yeah. I think after Grand Budapest Hotel, I don't think we're going to see a backslide.
Mm-hmm.
I think the amount of knowledge he has now, and I mean, the specificity, like in Steve Zissou's movie, if there was a chart, Wes writes out everything.
Oh, you're talking about like storyboard or something?
Not storyboarding. I mean, like if there's a menu.
Oh, I see.
And they're reading off a menu.
Yeah.
Or if there's a newspaper and somebody's reading the newspaper, Wes writes every article in that newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing.
Yeah, the attention
to detail.
The attention to detail. And I think you could even say that applies to the dialogue. There's a certain, we mentioned Glenn Ross recently. We talked about David Mamet, and
right,
the cadence to the dialogue in the films is so it's very stylistic, and it's when you're watching a Wes Anderson film, that's something that stands out and is common throughout all these films. Actually, even Bottle Rocket had that.
Yeah, and actors, it's almost musical in the way they say the cadence, especially with David Mamet, but the same, I think, with Wes is, and you'll see him sometimes, okay, the cadence needs to be faster. Just speed it up just a little bit. And the actors, he gets,
the size of these scripts, if you were to stack Owen, Bill's, and Rafe's beside each other. I mean, just pages and pages of dialogue. There's a lot of dialogue in those main characters.
And Jeff Goldblum, like in Grand Budapest, he's the attorney. Mm-hmm. He comes out and he just does this monologue that goes on, and you can tell it's locked in. Yeah. He's not reading or anything. He has got it locked and loaded.
Oh, for sure.
And just delivers it, perfectly.
Well, I can't say
the capers are in every one of his films.
The capers are in every one, yeah.
From this to Rushmore,
even with
all sorts of,
even with the fox and the dogs, they're caper.
That's a whole caper thing.
All right.
In fact, you'll see shots. There's a shot where Harvey Keitel and the guys slide down a laundry chute. Mm-hmm. The exact same shot is in Fantastic Mr. Fox.
That's pretty cool.
Identical.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, shame on me for not returning back to his films for so long, because this is what you appreciate about film. Again, the commitment to the craft is, I mean, how many people are really out there doing it to this degree right now? I mean, it's a very small list. It's a very small list.
To get somebody like a Wes Anderson, he's a special director. And he, just like Steven Spielberg, just like, they started when they were kids, making these movies in their backyards. And, we're old enough. Yeah, I know. We did too, which is ironic because we're old enough to, before cell phones, before video cameras.
Yeah, we got to dust off that screenplay and get that thing made.
Yeah, you and I, used to go to the store and look at cameras all the time. And this is when there were two pieces.
Right.
You had the camera and you had to carry the deck with the big VHS.
Suckers were heavy.
And you couldn't edit it on the fly.
Right.
We'd have to stop. And if we made a mistake, we'd have to go all the way back and start over again.
Those are the good old days.
That's what Wes is to me. He's like a special filmmaker.
Yeah, he's an artist.
Yeah, no doubt.
So if you were like me and you turned away for quite a while, it's time to go back and start to consume his films, which I've got plenty to go back to now that I have to see.
Yeah,
on his filmography. So I'm looking forward to that.
Grand Boot, I would start with Fantastic Mr. Fox for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because most people like that don't even realize Wes Anderson. They don't know who Wes Anderson is.
Well, I know who he is even more so now. So, well, Crystal, thanks for the recommendation. Sorry we didn't spend a lot more time on the Life Aquatic.
I know,
but we're right in line with where the critics are, anyways, with focusing on that one. So,
right.
But overall, he's just an amazing filmmaker. I enjoyed seeing all three of these films. It's crazy I hadn't seen any of them. That's actually pretty insane. But really enjoyable. Look forward to going back and consuming the rest of his resume. So anything else to say about WESTWORLD before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, just that, the themes throughout all of them are just, if you watch them back to back to back, even just three of them, you see the flow, but watching some of the special edition stuff is really, like, when you see the miniatures, like, I don't know if you remember Harvey Keitel, I got to bring it up again, where they're that escape, and there's a ladder and they push the ladder down that's like a ladder's this big.
Is it really? See, I didn't even pick up on that.
Right in front of the camera, and he's just like going like this.
That's so funny. So
it's
funny.
hysterical.
It's masterful. It's masterful.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, WESTWORLD. That's going to do it for this episode of the Oh Brother podcast. Don't forget, if you're not currently following us, make sure that you do. And to find all things Oh Brother, you can go out to our official website, which is OHB as in brother, podcast.com. That's ohbpodcast.com, right on the mug. And you can get access to all of our social media. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos out there as well. That really helps us out when you do that. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode of the Oh Brother podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bon voyage, everyone.